The year was 541 AD. The world was a very different place. In the eastern Mediterranean, the Byzantine Empire thrived. It was the continuation of the great Roman Empire, with its capital in the magnificent city of Constantinople. Emperor Justinian I sat on the throne, a man of immense ambition and power. He dreamed of restoring the full glory of ancient Rome, of reconquering lost lands and reviving its laws. But a silent, invisible enemy was about to emerge, one that would shatter his dreams and reshape the course of history. This enemy was not a rival army or a political usurper. It was a disease, a plague of unimaginable ferocity. Its story begins far from the marbled halls of Constantinople. The first whispers of the plague came from the sun-scorched lands of Egypt. Specifically, it appeared in the port city of Pelusium, on the eastern edge of the Nile Delta. Pelusium was a busy hub of trade. Its docks were crowded with ships arriving from across the known world. They carried grain, spices, textiles, other valuable goods, but they also carried unseen passengers. Hidden within the grain shipments were black rats. Hidden on these rats were fleas. These tiny insects carried a deadly bacterium, Yersinia pestis. The plague did not travel on foot, it traveled by sea. The Byzantine Empire was a maritime power. Its cities and provinces were connected by the Mediterranean Sea. Those sea lanes became the superhighway for the disease. Once the plague had established itself in the port of Pelusium, it was only a matter of time before it reached every corner of the empire. Ships laden with Egyptian grain were the primary vectors. The vessels were effectively floating incubators. Constantinople was the next major target. It was the largest and wealthiest city in the Western world, with a population estimated at over 500,000 people. The city was a ravenous consumer of grain. It imported massive quantities from Egypt to feed its citizens. In the spring of 542 AD, the ships carrying the plague arrived at its docks. The rats scurried off the ships and into the granaries, into the warehouses, into crowded tenements. The fleas, seeking new hosts as the rats died, jumped to humans. The infection began to spread silently at first, then with explosive speed. From Constantinople, the plague radiated outwards in all directions. It followed the trade routes like a fire spreading along a fuse. To the west, the Balkans, Greece, Italy; to the east, Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, Syria, Persia. The symptoms of the Justinian plague were horrific and swift. The disease it caused is now known as the bubonic plague, named for its most distinctive feature. Fever chills a general feeling of malaise, but within a day or two, the telltale signs would appear. Swellings called buboes would emerge in the groin, buboes would emerge in the armpits, buboes would emerge in the neck. These were the lymph nodes, overwhelmed by the Yersinia pestis bacteria. The buboes would grow to the size of an apple. The buboes would grow to the size of an egg, becoming incredibly painful, turning dark, almost black, as the tissue within them died. This gave the plague its later, more famous name, the Black Death. The disease progressed with terrifying speed. After the appearance of the buboes, the victim's condition would rapidly deteriorate. Many experienced delirium, becoming agitated and confused. Some would fall into a deep coma, while others were tormented by vivid hallucinations. The bacteria would spread through the bloodstream, causing septicemic plague, which led to internal bleeding. Dark patches would appear on the skin as blood pooled beneath it. In the heart of the crisis stood Emperor Justinian I. He was a ruler defined by his tireless energy and, his grand ambitions. When the plague struck Constantinople in the year 542, he did not flee. He remained in the capital, determined to maintain order and project an image of imperial control. At first, like many of his subjects, he may have underestimated the threat. But as the death toll mounted to truly horrifying levels, the gravity of the situation became undeniable. The emperor himself was not immune. At the height of the outbreak, Justinian actually contracted the plague. The entire empire held its breath, as the man who sought to restore Rome's glory lay on his deathbed, afflicted with the same fever and those dreaded buboes as his poorest subjects. Against all odds, Justinian survived. His recovery was seen by some as a miracle, maybe even a sign of divine favor. However, the experience deeply affected him. He emerged from his illness to find his capital city decimated and his empire in chaos. His response to the crisis was, a mixture of practical measures and traditional Roman authority. He ordered his officials to distribute money from the imperial treasury to help the poor and, at least, maintain some semblance of the economy. He also took steps to deal with the overwhelming number of corpses. He appointed special officials known as referendarii and gave them funds to hire men to clear the bodies from the streets and arrange for mass burials in enormous pits outside the city walls. The Justinian plague delivered a devastating blow to the economy of the Byzantine Empire. With a significant portion of the population dead, there was a severe labor shortage. Fields were left unplowed and crops unharvested because there were just not enough farmers to tend to them. This led to widespread food shortages and famine, which honestly further weakened the surviving population. In the cities, workshops and businesses closed down as artisans and merchants died. Trade, the lifeblood of the empire, slowed to a trickle. The intricate network of production and exchange that had made the empire so wealthy began to break down. The state's tax base collapsed, as there were fewer people to tax and less economic activity to generate revenue. This economic collapse had a direct and crippling effect on Justinian's military ambitions. The emperor had been in the midst of a massive project to reconquer the former Western Roman territories, including Italy and North Africa. These campaigns were incredibly expensive, requiring a constant supply of soldiers, money, and resources. The plague decimated the army's ranks, killing soldiers and making it nearly impossible to recruit new ones. More importantly, it destroyed the tax base needed to pay for the wars. Justinian's dream of a restored Roman Empire died with the plague's victims. The military campaign stalled, and the empire was left weakened and overstretched, unable to defend its newly conquered lands or even its existing frontiers. In the long term, the plague's demographic impact was profound. This dramatic population decline led to major social changes. The plague had, in effect, ended one era and begun another. In the face of a disease they could not understand, people turned to a wide range of desperate, often useless treatments. The medical knowledge of the time was based on the ancient Greek theory of the four humors: blood phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Illness was believed to be caused by an imbalance of these humors. Doctors tried to rebalance them. Common treatments included bloodletting poultices on the buboes. These methods were ineffective against Yersinia pestis and often weakened patients. Beyond physicians, people turned to magic, superstition, religious rituals. Amulets, charms were worn. Plague doctors appeared. Many were charlatans with potions and powders. Dealing with the dead was another crisis. Cemeteries filled almost overnight. Bodies were loaded onto barges dumped into the Sea of Marmara. Currents brought them back to shore. Justinian ordered roofs removed at Psyche towers filled with corpses. When full, massive burial pits were dug across the water. Procopius says counters gave up after 230,000. Some measures had accidental benefits. Belief in miasma led to burning incense aromatic woods. Smoke may have repelled fleas. People avoided crowded places. Early social distancing slowed spread. The Justinian plague is not merely a forgotten tragedy, it is a pivotal event in human history. Its impact fundamentally altered the trajectory of the Byzantine Empire, and by extension, Western civilization. The plague shattered Emperor Justinian's ambition to reunite the Roman Empire. The immense loss of life and the resulting economic collapse permanently weakened Byzantium, leaving it vulnerable to its enemies. The resources and manpower needed to hold on to reconquered territories vanished. Italy, North Africa. This failure to restore a unified Roman state ensured Europe would develop into a collection of distinct kingdoms, distinct cultures, setting the stage for the political landscape of the Middle Ages. The plague marks a significant turning point between the classical world of antiquity and the medieval era. The massive depopulation led to the decline of cities and the contraction of trade. The highly urbanized, interconnected Mediterranean world of the Romans gave way to a fragmented society, rural life, localized communities. This shift accelerated the decline of classical learning and institutions. The world that emerged from the plague was darker, poorer, and more fearful. For historians and scientists today, the Justinian plague serves as a crucial case study in the power of pandemics to shape society. However, modern genetic research has provided definitive proof. In 2013, scientists successfully extracted DNA of Yersinia pestis from the teeth of 6th century skeletons found in a plague burial site in Germany. This confirmed that the same bacterium responsible for the later Black Death in the 14th century was the cause of the Justinian plague. As we live in an age of global travel and emerging infectious diseases, the plague of Justinian is not just a historical curiosity. It is a cautionary tale, an echo from the past that warns of the devastating potential of pandemics and the fragility of the civilizations we build.